Hello, everyone. It's Dr. John here. I am coming at you with a discussion today on this continues our depression series, this time focusing more on the existential philosophical lens. I am recording this over at La Jolla Shores, San Diego. Um, Parking lot's behind me, beach is behind the computer and the camera, beach and ocean. I've got a second monitor over on my side. So if you see me looking over, it's just helping me keep track of what the YouTube video is looking like. Pretty cozy day, as I'm not sure if I'm going to post my other driving videos that I made earlier, but it's been got some rain earlier. Got the sun sort of is glowing behind the clouds, or they're clouds. I was gonna say marine layer, but seemingly more like clouds. Really foggy this morning. Anyways, I once had a teaching job where I traveled around the country teaching mindfulness for professionals. Um, I remember one of those classes, which I still get royalty checks from. Really, can't even really buy myself a vegan cheeseburger with the money I get at this point. But um, they said, when you're lecturing a class where it's recorded, don't mention the weather or other current events and stuff like that because it outdates the video. But um, whatever, I enjoy commenting on that. So let's get to it. I am going to try to keep this practical, straightforward, and not take too much time. You can see my description below to get a sense of the different topics we're going to hit on, and then also next video topics. So different than the previous videos where we focus more existential psychology, I want to explore some existential philosophy. A lot of overlap. Nevertheless, it's maybe we'll see some slight differences in there. But let's get started. So first, we're reflecting on depression as being an ontological condition. So if you're not familiar with the concept or the study of ontology, that's essentially, to put it simply, the study of being. So now we can think about depression, and I talked earlier in my video on this. I gotta upload that video. That one was done from the GoPro while I was on a ruck. We talked about the difference between, or a distinction between, and I probably mentioned this in every video, depression as being a diagnosable mental health condition where there's clear criteria as laid out in the DSM-5 TR. You can look it up there. But also from this existential standpoint and an ontological standpoint, we're interested in depression as being a different way of operating, or a different mode in which one is in the world. So Heidegger has this concept of disclosedness of existence. So what does that mean? Put simply here, life's projects lose their pull. The world appears flat. Possibilities close down. Okay. The comment here is, it's not an incidental, it is a truth-telling mood that strips away illusions of perpetual meeting, comfort, and progress. Okay, we got to break that down. So, and again, these videos aren't comprehensive. So the sense of, okay, in clinical terms, this would sort of be like anhedonia, where things that once brought joy or satisfaction no longer do so. The phenomenological view, as being pointed out here, is this flatness of the world, or like flat, one might have a flat affect, if you will. So that's how one presents to the world. But that would be like through the lens of the other. The phonological view would be like the world may be devoid of enthusiasm or pleasure, or there's, as I talked about earlier, the constricted, condensed existence, meaning I'm not going to be in the world in such a way that I feel a part of, if you will. So um, yeah, so stripping away illusions of perpetual meaning, comfort, and progress. That's heavy right there. So the way that I'm interpreting this concept is the view that perpetual, like there is this enduring meaning in existence, the sense of comfort and progress, and it's an illusion. So I don't know that that's my stance. I no, I do hold the stance that there is now that I'm thinking about it, like a bilateral relationship between myself and my world around me, meaning the world is seen through my my lens, and also there is a sense of the world reaching out to me. So there is this notion of my, say, like my body having this hold on the world, such that it's a natural, there's like a knowledge of how I interact with the world. Like it's not, it's maybe like a knowingness. Probably getting off topic there, but what I'm saying is that let's focus it on meaning. Meaning is something that I can construct, but maybe there is perhaps some other meaning out there waiting to be found. That kind of gets in a transpersonal spiritual view, in the sense of like, well, is there a sense of larger divine order that I can become a part of and align myself with? So that we got to hold both, I think, in a sense. So in terms of application, so we want to look through the existential lens. Is depression is not merely some illness, rather it is trying to understand what the experience of this depression is revealing about one's existence. So to be in a state or a mood of depression, one might have an altered lens on which they can discover more about their beingness, and more about sense of their sense of connection, to meaning, to um, their authenticity in the world. So depression would be more of like an inauthentic existence, because one is disconnected from authenticity. And also I think death brings a greater sense of mortality, and that can become more of a focus. Okay, spent way too much time there. That's okay. So to freedom, anguish, and avoidance. So here, and again, I use as my conversation launching point just some chat GBT conversations I have. So we're looking at the work of Sartre, where he makes the statement that we are condemned to be free. Therefore, we are always responsible for the choices that we make. So, depression can arise. I've got my own thoughts on this, but let's see here. Depression arising when freedom feels unbearable. One retreats into resignation, passivity, or self imprisonment. The anguish of freedom becomes replaced by the heaviness of despair. Okay, I buy that. I think I can go with that. However, what I want to also point out here is that I think there is also some fear that enters here. So this kind of is related to anxiety. However, um, there is, I'm getting some texts. There is like a sense of depression evolving out of a fear to choose, out of a resistance to choose, out of um, a sense of can I do this, right? Can I do this? Like, can I participate in this world in a way that um, I will not be judged, criticized, et cetera, et cetera. So that's also a different dimension that I think comes into play here. So in psychotherapy, we can utilize this concept in terms of working with the client, patient, person to figure out the ways in which they are not taking active steps to progress through choice. So that would be, as we talked earlier in another video, the very act of not choosing is still a choice. However, we must still take some action in order to be in the world. We are, I guess, already in the world, but we're talking more about a way of being in the world. So, any steps we can take forward, um, basically, action steps. So, physical actions, but also maybe on the level of metaphoric as well. Um, so that's the kind of a confrontation with freedom, and I was inspired by my earlier reflections to come up with like a daily guide for people that might be working with depression. Is that something, as I mentioned, part of my past that I've got some ideas of how I need to work, and I do my best to live up to that. Some days I don't, but we're all on this journey. Okay, so this is also, before I move on, like well, actually the next thing is meaninglessness and the call to create. But what I was actually going to say before I even saw that there was that there's a sense of being cut off from the creative force, if you will, and then we're susceptible in a depression to not be able to experience or have a sense for meaning and purpose. Um, One of the best um, figures to look at, in my opinion, in this regard, and we talked about him in an earlier video, Viktor Frankl. Um, he emphasizes the importance of making meaning for human beings. So when we have say even like a traumatic experience, our sense of meaning in the world can be dismantled, shattered, and then we have to somehow figure out how to reestablish a sense of meaning and purpose. Also, we can get into these states where we feel like existence is empty, it's devoid of substance, or get caught up in like we'll probably talk about this later, like a preoccupation of death, in the sense of, well, I will die someday, therefore what's the point. I always think of that character in Catch 22, the novel. I don't remember his name, There's this character who was, if I'm remembering correctly, maybe I'm not. There was like a fear of him dying in the war, so he did essentially whatever he could do to just keep himself like really bored, because in his experience of the world, if he was bored, time would seem like it was going much slower. Therefore, he would be living longer. So that's an interesting take. So let's see, we've got to also have a sense of like direction in life, like a place that we want to kind of live towards. So in the absence of that, we can certainly fall into a kind of despair or depression. So in the psychotherapy context, really, it's about figuring out for the person like what matters to them. There isn't a preordained sense of what matters. I can't prescribe like a certain here's what life means, right? It might mean that for me, but the person has to discover their truth on that and their authentic sense of meaning. And so we want to look for wherever we can find for the person some sense of like spark, right? How to find that one thing that maybe that it might be a very dim light. However, if we can bring the dimness of that light into focus and then take some steps or exploration around that, the light may brighten. Okay, therefore we can get in on some reversing the downward spiral and starting it into an upward spiral through. I always preach like action steps with depression. Taking action is really important in getting out of a depression. So we can get connected with actions like even through expressive arts, through hanging out with a friend, through engaging in kind acts, practicing gratitude, getting into spirituality, looking at the ocean, all of those things. We can establish more meaning in there. And there's also a sense of creation, in the sense of one can create their creativity, right? Bringing what I think is the internal framework. I think everybody's an artist in a sense, but bringing the art into life, that's a beautiful act of creation. And again, reconnecting with values also contributes to meaning. All right, so let's see. We're moving on to isolation and authentic encounter. We've talked about isolation already in a previous video, but in a sense, we're all sort of there. There's no escape from existential isolation. And the boiled down version of this is essentially no one can live for us, no one can die for us. We are the ultimate actor in our own lives. And depression really can shine a light upon this reality, if you will, such that we can fall into the gulf of isolation, the despair, in that gap between me and the other. And of course, we have the work of I believe Martin Buber, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, talks about the healing aspects of the I thou relationship. So what it feels like to be fully seen, fully witnessed, fully met, fully joined with, to be held in the loving presence of another. That has healing, and sometimes that can be what the therapy is primarily about. I mean, it's such a powerful the relationship, in other words, is such a powerful instrument for change and healing in psychotherapy. All right, so death and the urgency of life. So we must maintain a sense of mortality in order to live more completely and fully. I think that's the ultimate motivator. Um, eh, if we know that our time's limited, then not too much time to waste, right? We got to get to our projects, get started on things, get out of that stuck place. Act with passion, with vigor. Uh, um, um, Direct yourself towards the things that matter, knowing that the days are numbered, right? So this can be explored in psychotherapy in the sense of like people experiencing, like, say, the death of a loved one, or um, um, it particularly hits whenever a peer dies, because that's someone of similar age, and then it's okay, well, the veil between me and death is thinning, and so um, we have to move towards that rather than avoid it or turn away from it. So we can sort of think about what our calling is in the face of limited time. So that's a way to charge up or spark up our sense of living. All right, last point we're going to make for today is, of course, authenticity versus inauthenticity. So to be a stranger to oneself, to be distant from one's own sense of direction and purpose, is definitely a source of despair. Therefore, we don't want to, as we talked about in other videos, follow the herd and live according to somebody else's thoughts about what one should do. Okay. So we want to really like tap into what is real for us, what is authentic, and then battle against whatever those sort of like inner critics says to us about what we ought to be doing, should be doing, must be doing, et cetera, and instead come from the heart in the sense of like, what matters to me, what do I want to do with this one life. I'm thinking of Mary Oliver poem where she talks about that sense of this one. I forget the lines exactly. Is it one wild and precious life or something like that? Anyways, I digress. So what we got to do, in boiling it down, is really say yes to authentic experiences, pursue those, immerse in those, dive into those, and essentially say no to whatever feels out of alignment with our values or our passion or wherever we want to get to in life. All right, so we're going to leave it at that as we are over the 20-minute mark. And so, wherever you are, I wish you peace and love. And feel free to leave me some comments. Would love to hear your thoughts on this stuff. You can email me, message me. If you dig this content, please like, subscribe, hit the notification so you know when new videos are coming out. And also, I am launching an online platform that will be coming soon. I'm still sorting out exactly what that's going to look like. But if you reach out to me, I can get you on the wait list to join that community and to know about it. So we'll be seeing you soon. All right, take care, y'all.